webinar. So the thing is that you can see Dustin and myself, but we cannot see you. We cannot hear you. So if you're hanging out at home on the couch, just living your best life, totally fine. We can't see you. We can't hear you. But we can communicate through the chat. And I kind of had everybody go on and mention where they're from. But if you're having trouble, the chat, if you look on the bottom of your screen, whether you're on a desktop, an iPad, a mobile device, either on the top or the bottom, there's a thumbnail, and it should have a little icon that says chat, and it may have where you can raise your hand. But the chat is what we're going to be using, and you can choose to chat either with the host and the panelist or everyone. It really doesn't matter too much, but you can use that chat box. And just to kind of get started, that's a lovely lure you have there, Dustin.
Yeah.
Just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. I already asked you all to put down where you're from, but if y'all can, let's get back on the chat real quick and let's see. So we're going to be talking about bass fishing, right? Let's talk. I'm all for eating fish. I've never eaten bass, and it's a goal to try it. But let's talk. What's your favorite way to eat fish? Whether it's bass, whether it's crappie, whether it's walleye, whether it's trout. Go ahead and type it on the chat. What's your favorite way to eat fish? Fried. I think that's definitely got to be like a Southern thing, right? Fried catfish. And that's what's your favorite way?
I'd have to say my favorite would be baked. I like to bake walleye and crappie, and I like to roll it in butter and Lay's potato chips, and then bake it, and you get like a real crispy crust. It's really good.
What?
Yeah, that's definitely the best way I can eat fish. Fried's great. I mean, if you're in a pinch for time, but doing the baking with the Lay's potato chips is by far the best.
Well, by golly, I'm gonna have to try that. So we've got fried. So we got fried. Is there any other way than fried? Bass or fish gumbo. Have you ever had fish gumbo, Dustin?
No, I haven't, but I mean, it'd be good. It'd have to be.
Yeah. Fried fillets, preferably on a buffet with big cinnamon rolls at the end. Yes. Sign me up for that. I haven't eaten bass either, Eric. But I'm gonna try it. Trout and catfish, yes. I like it baked or broiled. Bob, do you do the potato chips on your baked fish? Or is that just a Dustin thing? Dustin, they're plain potato chips, right?
Yeah, just Lay's potato chips. It just kind of gives it a little bit of salty flavor to it, and it's crunchy, and it's just really good, really, really good. And you don't get that heavy, fried batter in there. So it's good with like a baked potato or something, or a salad.
No, Dustin, we did no salad. You have like fried potatoes. You gotta have a coleslaw. You gotta have puppies.
Definitely hush puppies. My dad's got a pretty impressive recipe there too that he's been making for a long time, and definitely make those every time.
That sounds good. All right, so you all have gotten used to the chat. Bob, I just a little lemon juice and be sure not to overcook them. Fried is great too. I understand. So good. Y'all got the chat down. If you have any questions while we are talking, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. And the whole premise behind this idea was to have a conversation. The past couple of ones we've had game and fish biologists, bass, part of the Bass Black Bass program, that were with us. Unfortunately, they're traveling tonight, so it's just me and Dustin, and I am just here to read the questions for Dustin, and to just give my own questions to Dustin. But please use those. Dustin, looks like you got a lot of old lures on the wall back there.
Yeah, I saw that pop up there. Well, me and my dad were big lure collectors, and I mean, he's been bass fishing since he was, a couple of years old. He's 60 years old, so he's collected tons of stuff, and we keep them up. We've got all sorts of old tackle boxes full of them. It just kind of becomes a thing now when we go to yard sales or anything like that. If we find them, we take them, bring them home. clean them up and try to, make something to present them.
That's awesome. So, so why don't I go ahead and so you've been talking to Dustin, so let me have Dustin introduce himself and he can go ahead and get us started on tonight's webinar.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. My name is Dustin Elder. I work for Pradco Outdoor Brands. We are one of the world's largest fishing tackle manufacturers. We have 18 different brands, I believe, currently, like Yum, Booyah, Bandit, Norman, Gene LaRue, Bobby Garland, Crappie, Bandit, just tons of great brands. And we're actually headquartered in Fort Smith, Arkansas. So we are an Arkansas company. Everyone works in Arkansas. I work in Fort Smith as well, and then I also live in Mount Ida, Arkansas, right beside Lake Ouachita. I fish as much as I possibly can. I guide a little bit. My dad guides on Lake Ouachita, and that's kind of how we rolled into this. We were asked by the Arkansas Game and Fish if we could just do a little webinar series just describing bass fishing this time of year. So in the past few weeks, we have been discussing spawn bass fishing and pre-spawn bass fishing, and just talking about all the things that go into spawn and that type of stuff. We're pretty much in the spawn right now. So we've talked it to death. We've talked about it several weeks now. We're going to talk about post-spawn fishing. And basically what post-spawn bass fishing means is fishing at the end of the spawn. Once the fish are done spawning, they're done moving around up shallow. And there's a lot of different techniques and things that go into that. But basically the post-spawn, what that means is it's the end of the spawn. And so bass, they're done with the spawning behavior. They're done being up shallow and creating beds and doing that kind of thing. But you're going to have fish all over the lake, all over the river, all over the pond. They're going to be in all sorts of different modes. They're going to be in all sorts of different depths. You'll have fish like the male bass will be up shallow, still cruising around, guarding fry. That's a typical thing that you'll see this time of year. So there'll still be fish up shallow in your shallow cover. Then you'll have a lot of the bigger female bass will move out deeper. They'll start moving into deep water where they can heal from the spawning, the spawning habits that they have. It takes a great toll out on a bass to spawn. So they'll move out deeper. So you'll have fish, 10, 15, 20 foot of water out in channels, off points. They'll be in deep water to where they can move shallow. Then you'll have fish that are starting to, school. They're starting to get out deep, and they're starting to move and school around bait. And you'll see them breaking the surface and eating minnows and doing that kind of thing. So you'll see fish in every single water depth. You'll see them in a foot of water cruising around, guarding their fry, their young bass. You'll see bass slightly off, in a off a point, or just, any type of, mid-depth structure, we'll call it, from 5 to 15 foot of water. And then you'll see bass deep is 20, 25, 30 foot deep. You'll see them just cruising around, milling around, looking for minnows or shad or anything of that nature. So it's a pretty difficult time of year, but if you can find the fish, if you can identify where they are at that particular day, you can have some of the best fishing of your life. I mean, you can gang up on lots of fish and just have a really great time depending upon where you find them. Basically, we'll get into like temperature, water temperature. We talk about that every week. For the spawn, you typically see water temps around 60 degrees, 60 to 65 degrees. And when the spawn goes, you'll typically see the water from 65 to 75. That's what we call the immediate post spawn. That's when you know that the bass have probably gotten done spawning, and they're moving around. They're in all these different periods. There'll be a lull where, nothing seems to want to bite, but that's just because they're moved in these different depths. They're in different places. You just really got to search around to find fish this time of year. Typically, this happens in May. That's what I call it in central Arkansas and all over Arkansas. The first couple of weeks of May, they'll begin getting into these cycles. They'll be done spawning, and they'll be moving into all these different zones. Pretty much the month of May to early June. This is what I call the post-spawn period. This is when bass are going to be in all these different modes, and you can catch them on a variety of different things. And we'll just go ahead and start jumping into that, because I have tons of different lures here to talk about, because you need tons of different lures this time of year. Whether you're fishing a pond bank, you're fishing the creek, you're fishing a river, you're fishing a highland reservoir lake like Lake Ouachita, where I live beside. You need lots of different things to target all these different fish. And if you get lucky, you can catch fish on a variety of different things, pretty much anything you want to. But just starting out, like I talked about earlier, You've got a lot of fish that are going to be up shallow still. You're going to have fish that are guarding fry, as we call it. They're guarding the young bass so that bluegill or salamanders or whatever might be in the water might come eat their little, fry bass. So they are up there guarding. They're cruising around shallow banks. They're moving around in front of lay down trees or any type of cover like that. And as I talk about every week, the absolute best thing to target these shallow bass with is a yum dinger. And yeah, it's funny, Danielle's laughing here because we talk about it every week, but simplicity is the way to go with fishing. It really is. People try to overcomplicate everything. Sometimes a simple 5-inch stick bait like this yum dinger here and all the myriad of colors that we have is the best thing. As I always say, you need to have this out on your deck every year or every single month all year long because it will catch fish in some variety. I still recommend trying it wacky rig, which is just taking a hook, rigging it in the middle, casting it out, letting that thing flutter down really slow in front of trees, lay downs, anything that the bass were spawning around. You're going to want to try that first. You're going to just say, okay, there might still be some fish up here guarding fry. So this is a great way to just cast around into that. Now, there's also a few other techniques that you can do if you're targeting shallow fish. Another great one we've talked about before is a square bill crankbait. This is a Booyah XCS square bill crankbait. You can find these at Academy, Bass Pro, Walmart, just about any store. It's just a great silent square bill crankbait. What we do with this is, we target the same types of areas we do with the yum dinger. We target shallow rock, wood, places where they were spawning. You just cast it out, drag it around in front of those. You try to deflect it off any type of cover and just get a reaction bite. These fish aren't hungry. They're just trying to get this, whatever it is, away from their bed and just move it away. So whenever that thing, bumps into where they were bedding or around their fry, they're going to react to it and they're going to bite it. This is a really great option if you've got some wind or, rain or any type of adverse conditions. You can take this and cast it around and catch fish up shallow. And I think we got a couple of questions there, so I'll back off for a second.
Yeah. So, so the very, very first was on your older lures. Do you ever use those that you discovered and recovered? And if so, what was the classic that really worked for you on your older lures?
Yeah. Well, that's really cool to ask. Actually, there is. Of course, companies, every fishing lure company, they come up with things and they discontinue them that really work in certain parts of the country. The problem is it didn't work all over the country. It might be something that worked amazing I always draw back to it, but Lake Ouachita here in central Arkansas. One lure that we have right here, it's called a cotton cordell tail-weighted boy howdy. Now, interestingly enough, this lure, it only came out in the 1990s and early 2000s, and it was discontinued by Cotton Cordell. Luckily, a few years ago, we brought this lure back. We decided to bring it back at Cotton Cordell and sell it again. But for many years, my dad and everyone around Lake Ouachita and Sam Rayburn, a lot of big lakes, they would hoard these baits. They would find them wherever they could. They would buy them. They put new hooks on them, and they would still throw them. I mean, this one right here, this was a model from the 2000s that I've just had. I think I got it out of my grandpa's tackle box when he passed away. I put new hooks on it, cleaned it up, and I still use it. It's still my favorite topwater lure, and we'll talk about it a little bit later.
And then do you ever use a rubber hook on a wacky worm? Is there an advantage to that?
I think you mean like a rubber O-ring, and that's something really common. And I do. I take a rubber O-ring and I'll place it on I place it around the middle of it, and then I'll hook the dinger through it. That's a really, really great way to use this. It doesn't, a lot of people think that you're not going to get as many hookups on it, but you do. You still catch plenty of fish on it, and it saves your yum dinger. It's basically whenever you get a bite, instead of it getting thrown off when the fish shakes its head, it'll send that dinger up the line so you won't break it off. But yeah, no, O-rings work great.
Good. Thanks for clarifying. We don't want rubber hooks. Ralph says, I have several packages of soft plastics that are at least a year old. How long are the soft plastics good for, and do they turn bad?
They will turn bad at some point, but I mean, it might be over 10 or 15 years. It takes a long time, because I've got some old bags of yum from the mid 2000s that I still use. They're starting to fade a little bit, but I mean, honestly, if you keep them stored well, they'll last a very long time. If they don't get wet or anything. If they get wet, they might start to break down.
And I think that's Eric says the wacky is his favorite. So
That's the best. Can't beat it.
I think that's all you got for now.
Okay, cool. Well, we just talked about the square bill crankbait. That's another shallow water killer if you've got fish up, garden fry, things of that nature. That's a great thing to use. If you're, milling around a pond bank or a creek that's shallow, always keep one of these by, because you can cast it and you can run it through just about anything, because that little lip, it'll come over about any type of cover. The next couple things, as far as fishing shallow still, you can always take a creature bait. This is a Yum Spine Craw. It's a crawdad looking lure. And then we've got this is a Jean LaRue Biffle bug. They're just creature baits. They look like, I really don't even know what they're supposed to look like. They're supposed to look like a crawdad. But what they do, they just have flapping appendages. What you do is you take an extra wide gap hook, and you Texas rig them. You rig it through the top and back through the plastic. Take you a small weight, like a 1/4 ounce weight, and put on top of it. And you just take this and just pitch it around. You just pitch it around shallow cover and let these baits fall slowly. That's really great ways to target fish in the post spawn, because sometimes they'll get sucked up into tight cover near the bank, and you need something that can slip in and out. That's an easy one. That's a really great thing to always keep on your deck. And then, as always, we talk about a spinnerbait. A spinnerbait is always a great lure, no matter what. All year long, I recommend having a spinnerbait, because if you've got wind or anything like that, just cast this bait out, windy banks, points, anything like that, near shallow cover, near deep cover. You can sink this bait down, fish it to any depth. But it just resembles a shad. It resembles a school of shad with those two blades kicking. I recommend in post spawn using a double willow leaf combination, because it's the brightest flash. That's what you want to have this time of year, because you're imitating shad now. I think we got a question there.
What's the best time of year to throw the Alabama rig?
Best time to throw the Alabama rig is the pre-spawn time from I'll say the fall and the pre-spawn from October to early March. That's the absolute best time, because fish are more backed off in deep water, and they're tight to cover in deep water, like brush piles and things of that nature. That's when I say it's the best time.
Have you ever used a Sugar Buzz by Strike King, and how well does
Yeah, it's called a swinging sugar buzz, and what it is, it just has a hook that swings free on. It's a really cool design. It's a good buzz bait. I've thrown it a few times, but I traditionally like to use just a regular buzz bait that doesn't have a free swinging hook like this Booyah Buzz. But no, it does work.
I think that's it for now.
Okay, cool. Well, just to keep jumping into different things we got here. One that I've talked about before that works really great in the post spawn is a single swim bait. This is our Yum Scottsboro swim bait. It's a new swim bait we just designed. It has a lot of head kick and tail kick combined. And what this does is just a real subtle presentation. It's great in clear water, just to draw some bites out of fish. Like we talked about earlier, female bass, that when they move off from spawning, they'll get into deeper water and they'll just kind of retreat. They just kind of sit there dormant, because they're tired. They're trying to recover. And this is a great way to get them to bite, because you can cast this out, you can reel it really, really slow, just kind of, just trying to sneak it by them. That's what an old fishing guide told me one time about fishing swim baits. You're trying to make this bait sneak past them, kind of like a mouse with a piece of cheese trying to get past a cat. And that's what you want. You want to look very natural in the water and sneak past them, and it'll get you a lot of bites this time of year.
Steven said, does spitting on your bait really work?
I don't know if spitting will. No, I don't think so. But if you have some type of scent like garlic or something like that, that will work. It probably wouldn't, because, it's going to make it smell more like us, and we're not natural in the water. So don't know if that would work the best.
Only if you chew tobacco.
Yeah, that might work.
Maybe you went to an Italian restaurant and had quite a spaghetti.
Yeah, something like that. That would help. Just to dive back in, we talked about the buzz bait earlier. Had that question about it. This is a Booyah buzz bait. This is one that we make here at Booyah in Fort Smith, Arkansas. This is a great option whenever bass are post spawn, because they're more apt to hit a top water as the water temperature rises. You get a lot of fish that hit shallow water, like we're talking about, cruising bass that are looking for garden fry and things of that nature. You take this, cast it up shallow, Just burn banks. Just go through as many banks as you possibly can. It gets a lot of ferocious bites. You'll see fish jump plumb out of the water on top of this thing. I recommend it. This is one of the most fun things you can possibly throw any time of the year. And the best time is immediately after they get done spawning in like early May through June. Highly recommend this.
So Dustin, just my experience, because I'm not a bass fisherman, but that seems so big to me. Like
Yeah.
so big.
It does look cumbersome, but the thing is, they're only looking at this right here, this small head that's sitting in the water, because what it is it sits on top of the water, this blade does, and it kicks and it causes a commotion, which gets their attention. But all they're seeing is this head going through the water. They're seeing commotion in that head, and it just looks like something like a dying shad or a frog or something up there kicking. And that's what they see. They just see that and they say, oh gosh, something's happening. And they'll go and react to it.
Okay. Because it's kind of intimidating.
It is, yeah. It is.
Eric asked, when's the best time to use a frog?
Oh, the best time to use a frog is honestly what we're talking about right now, the post-spawn time. As soon as they get done spawning in like May to June, that the month of May is a great time to throw a topwater, especially a shallow topwater like this frog. This is a Booyah Toad Runner Junior. It's a really cool frog that we make that has a kicking tail on it like a buzzbait. So you can take this, cast it into shallow weeds and grass and reel it out and get a lot of bites. The frog works best if you're fishing around weeds or grass, if you're fishing around really heavy cover, because it has hooks that are buried in the back. And it's made out of a hollow plastic, so it'll reel over anything. I mean, you can get this next to any type of cover and it won't hang up.
On your crankbaits, do you add any weight to them?
No, not. I don't do anything. I just honestly just take them right out of the package. I mean, like this Booyah XCS crank, just take it out of the package, cast it out. I mean, it's ready to go. It's got very sharp hooks and everything on it already.
What about time of day? Is there generally a better time, like dawn or dusk, or does the bite vary throughout the day with all the variables?
In post spawn, I mean, this becomes a time whenever people think of traditional fishermen waking up at the crack of dawn. You want to be out there at dawn, at sunrise, because that's when, fish are most apt to bite the best this time. Just when they're going to feed. There's always a feeding period initially in the morning, and that's whenever you'll see fish schooling out deep. You'll see them more active on the bank. And so I recommend you need to be up at sunrise, and you also need to fish at sunset. You need to fish like the hour before dark. Those are the two best times this time of year.
I think that's it for good for now. There's no other questions.
Gotcha. Well, I got a couple other things here to talk about if you're fishing in deeper water. We talked about fishing, some fish are going to move off deep, and that's why I have this crankbait here. This is called a Norman DD22 crankbait. This is a deep diving crankbait as noted by the bill. What this does, it'll dive up to 17 to 18 foot deep. It dives very deep. What you do with this is you take it, on a lake with deep water. If you're fishing a point or a hump or something out deep, fish are there around a brush pile, and maybe it's a channel swing bank. You just take this deep diving crankbait, cast it out very far, drag it down deep so that it's bumping up against the bottom, and it just draws a lot of bites. It just looks like a wayward shad moving away, and fish are really apt to bite it. This is a great lure in the post spawn when fish are moved off shallow and getting around channel swings. Now, this is a little bit more cumbersome. This is difficult to use because you have to identify where fish might be, whether it be a channel swing bank or something you notice on your sonar of your boat. This isn't something really that you would want to just be casting from the bank and dragging around a pond. This is more of a deep water, a deep lake lure. And then as far as topwaters go, topwaters become probably the major thing to use this time of year in the post spawn, because as the water heats up, bass are more apt to eat things on top. And that's because shad, bluegill, things like that, they begin to move up in different water columns because it's warmer water and there's more things for them to feed on in the warmer top part of the water. That's when baits like the head and spook become very popular. This is called a Head and Super Spook Boyo. This is our newest lure we brought out last year. It is a 3-inch long version of our spook. It is a great lure for ponds, for creeks, for lakes, for anywhere that's got small shad, small bluegill. This is a very great lure. And what this is a walk the dog lure. A lot of people, if you're familiar with the spook, what you do is you cast it out, you twitch your rod tip on slack line, it makes this bait walk. It just makes it walk right on the surface, and it has a small rattle. It just looks like, a shad or a bluegill just getting away from a bass. Very great lure to use if you see schooling fish. If you see bass out, off of points or in flats or anywhere, and they're busting on top of the surface. You see the commotion, cast this lure over the top of them, do some subtle walks, stop it, walk it fast, things of that nature. It'll get you a lot of bites. This is a really cool lure. I highly recommend having one of these in the summer and in the post spawn. Then two other topwater lures that I have here. One of them, I know a lot of people are familiar with. This is called a cotton cordell redfin. The redfin it's what's known as a wake bait. It's a small minnow type lure, has a little bill on the front of it. And what it is you cast this bait out and you reel it very slowly with your rod tip high. And this bait's just going to wake right on top of the surface, just like this, just kind of like that spook, walking across the surface. This just kind of has a subtle little wag just right on the surface. This is great around schooling fish. This is great throwing up shallow to get those bass that are guarding fry to come up and eat. It's just a really cool action. And it's a really simple bait. You can just give it to anybody and say, all right, cast that near the bank, reel it very slowly, and it'll get bites. It's just really, really, really subtle. And it gets a lot of bites, and it gets bites out of every species. I've caught striper, white bass, even a walleye on this thing. I mean, it gets bites. And then last but not least, as far as lures go and presentations, is the cotton cordell tail-weighted boy howdy. This is the lure I talked about earlier that, was discontinued. We bought it back with cotton cordell. What this is a tail-weighted lure, so you can cast it very far if you see schooling fish of any kind on any clear water lake or river. Cast it out, and what it does is it sits tail down in the water just like that. It's kind of stupid, the action this bait has. What you do is you just kind of pop your rod tip, and it just kind of moves. It's kind of like the drinking bird toy that, you've seen on people's desks at work. It just kind of pops, and moves along. And it's really subtle. It just looks like a bluegill just blooping on top of the water. I know a lot of fishermen have heard a bluegill just go bloop, bloop in deep water. That's what this lure does. It gets a lot of bites. It might not look like something you want to pick up and throw, but I highly recommend it because it gets a lot of bites. It's a very great lure for topwater fishing in the post spawn. And that right there is all the lures I have here. I'm about to choke up now because I was talking for such a long period of time. But if you have any questions, please let me know and we can answer those real quick.
Yeah, Stephen asked on your crankbait, how do you use it? Do you do stop and go, or is it like a steady pull?
Typically a steady pull. If you're fishing deep enough water, you just want to have a steady pull, so it's just maintaining contact on the bottom. If you're fishing a little bit shallower than this bait runs, you want to do like a stop and go, because as you run it and you stop it, it's going to back up, and then you run it again, it'll dig, stop, it'll back up. That's a good technique if you're in shallower water.
Can you do a really quick review on your lures real quick, the top shallow ones and the deep ones?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can just go back through what we had. First thing we talked about always is a 5-inch dinger, wacky rig, throwing it up shallow. Then we've got your square bill crankbait, a Booyah XCS square bill crankbait, a Booyah Toad Runner Junior frog, a Booyah spinnerbait, double willow spinnerbait, a couple of soft plastic creature baits, a Yum spine crawl and a Gene LaRue Biffle Bug Jr. Rigdos Texas rig, a Yum Scottsboro swim bait. That's just a single swim bait, a 3.5-inch long swim bait. A Heddon Super Spook Boyo walking topwater bait, just a traditional spook bait. A Norman DD22 deep diving crankbait that dives to 17 foot deep. A cotton cordell red fin wake bait, chrome blue. Always recommend using a shad color like a chrome. And then my favorite of all time for fishing topwater anywhere in the state of Arkansas is the cotton cordell tail weighted boy howdy. And you can pick up every single one of these lures on our website at lurenet.com. We have every single one of them in stock right now. I always pick lures that we've got in stock, but you can pick them up right now, and they work. This in the coming weeks, post spawn will be coming soon. I mean, right now it's the spawn, so I recommend, watching some of our older podcasts that we've had and using some of those lures. But if I could, summarize any of them, use a wacky rig yum dinger. I mean, Danielle laughs because I've talked about it every single week, but I mean, if there's anything that I can stress, it's this. It's a $3.29 lure, weight at $3.29 at any store you go into. About any gas station pretty much sells these. Take this, get you a small hook, a wacky rig hook, rig it in the middle, go out, cast it up shallow next to cover like rocks, wood, lay down trees, anything like that. And you're going to get bites this time of year. Highly recommend it.
So I laugh each time because Kendra, who's done the other videos, she's not, she'll fish, but she's just not one of her favorite things to do. But she's answered questions for the past couple of weeks, and she's like, I know everything I need to know. You need to fish in the shallows when they're spawning, and you need a yum dinger. That's what you need to know. Like that's been her little mantra is just, I need the yum dinger. I need to be in the shallows when they're spawning. That's what I got. So
yeah,
it's been her thing.
That's it basically. And you know, the cool thing about a yum dinger is for everyone here, like we're in Arkansas, this bait is made in Fort Smith, Arkansas. So I mean, there's kind of a pride thing here with people in Arkansas. I mean, this is literally made here. It's made by people in Arkansas. So it's pretty cool to be able to catch fish in Arkansas on something made in Arkansas.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, Damon asked, Matt said, thank you, by the way, for going through those.
Yeah, no problem.
Damon asked, what are some good general strategies for working around the vegetation coming back this spring, like the lily pads, moss, all that mess? That's just such a challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, just an easy strategy is Texas rigging baits like this yum dinger. I've got it rigged Texas rig right here with an EWG hook. Always have things that can slip easily in and out of cover. And also don't fish with a heavy weight. Fish with like an 1/8 ounce weight unless you're wanting to bust through cover. I recommend using something light so it'll just kind of flutter through, you know, the heavy grass, the lily pads, so you can fish around it and look really natural, as well as using things like a frog. I mean, using a frog is just the best thing for really heavy cover. It's easy. You don't get hung up and you get a lot of bites, and they're visual bites. You get to actually see the fish blow up. So that's my best tips for, you know, fishing around lily pads and cover like that.
Does Booyah offer tours in Fort Smith?
I don't believe we do, honestly, right now, due to all like the COVID and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, in the coming months, as things, you know, obviously get even more lax, that's probably something we can do.
What's the best color for a crankbait?
Best color for a crankbait depends on the water clarity that you're fishing in. If you're fishing in clear water, something that is more clear, like this one, it's called Lucent Shad, something more luminous. That's the color you want to use there. But if you're fishing in dirty water, something that's got chartreuse or black on it, something that has more of an opaque finish, that is what you want in dirty water.
And I'm going to not pronounce this correctly, okay? Don't laugh. Does Hedden still make a spook pup?
Yeah, we make something called a Zara Puppy. We do still make that lure, and it's just a small little spook. It's about the same size as this Boyo. It just doesn't have a rattle in it. So yeah, we still make that.
And just for my clarification, what's the rattle? What is that doing?
The rattle, I mean, it also gives the bait some weight so you can cast it farther, but it just gives, you know, just something to aggravate fish and just make them notice it. Because you're throwing this, and sometimes in deep water, and fish are 10 or 15 foot below it. They need something to make them look up.
Okay. All right. I don't see any questions right now. So if y'all don't mind, Dustin's talked a lot about different types of lures and stuff. Y'all go ahead and put down which one of your favorite ones you think that that Dustin's talked about, and which one you think you're going to go out and actually utilize. Like, what's something you want to try out with the ones that Dustin's talked about.
I know the two that I'm going to use actually this weekend. I'm going to go out. I have tomorrow off, luckily, from work. I took off, so I'm going to use these two right here. This is our swim bait, and this is yum dinger. I'm going to throw both of these lures tomorrow.
And the swim bait's the one you want to try to sneak past, right?
Yep. Swim bait's the, you know, like a mouse with cheese. That kind of analogy there.
Matt's going to be with the wacky dinger, always have one tied on. Very good.
It's hard to beat. That's for sure.
You've talked about it, so it seems like something that you wouldn't like, especially someone that might be new, like that's something they can just keep on hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I throw it all the time, even in the summertime.
I've seen older lures that articulate in 3 parts and such. How do you use those types?
Articulate in 3 parts. Well, I think you might mean like a jointed lure. Most jointed lures, typically, they're either a topwater lure that you walk and the joints move, or it'd be like a swim bait where it has a bill on it and you reel it, and it just when it has joints in it, just the body is supposed to move more fluidly, or that's how some people used to think.
Um, Damon says he wants to use that swim bait with that boat tail, and it looks so natural. I agree. I agree. Let's see. Do you prefer wide gap or ordinary round bend worm hooks? And what size hook matches different worm and creature bait sizes?
Yeah, well, when it comes to Texas rigging, I like an EWG like I've got right here. It's got a wide bend to it. And I use anything. I mean, if you just want to buy one hook for all plastics, buy a 3/0 hook. 3/0 will fit just about any plastic unless you're using big monster ones. It'll fit in all the ones that I talked about today. And as far as wacky rigging, I like just a traditional round bend, just a bait holder hook, as they call it, like a Gamakatsu bait holder. It has, no bend to it. It has a lot of bite, so you're able to hook up a lot better.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts? Ready a minute. Have more that you were going to add on to?
Do what?
Did you have any more that you were going to add? Were you going to talk about anything else this evening?
Oh no, I don't believe so. Not really. Just just what post spawn is, and then the different lures and places that you would need to look to catch fish. That pretty well sums it up. I mean, normally when we have the biologists on here, they're able to give you more of like a really what the bass are doing and like what's going on. But other than that, no. This is it.
Jim wants to know when you want to go fishing, Dustin.
Hey, anytime.
Stephen asked if you can show how to hook the worm on, like really slow, please. You do it with quite a bit of finesse.
Of course. I mean, for Texas rig, you just take it, you get this top part right here, which is kind of like a circular top, rig it right through, go down to where the bend stops, pull that through, and you just pull it through up to the eye. You twist that eye around. I've rigged this one so many times it's coming out. But you just rig it like that, and then you just take your hook. Can't see myself. Then you just place it right back through the lure just like that to where it sits flush on top. And there you go. You got a Texas rig worm. Really, really hard to hang this bait up. Now, if you want to just wacky rig it, that's the other thing I've talked about. You just get it. We've got a little hook slot here. Just go on the end of that hook slot, take your hook, rig it right through the middle, and you're good to go. That's wacky rigging. That's the simplest way to do it. That's basically 2 ways.
If someone were to just start bass fishing, which way would you suggest, Texas or wacky?
Just a wacky rig. It's got the most action and it gets the most bites.
Do you use braided line very much? And if so, do you use a leader?
Yeah. I mean, especially with like a spinning rod, I use braided line like a light 15 or 20 pound test, and then you splice like a 2 or 3 foot piece of 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon, depending upon how much coverage in your lake. If you're fishing really clear water like I do, 6 or 8 pound test works. But if you're fishing it like Dardanelle or the Arkansas River, 10 pound works better.
Okay. Any other questions y'all might have?